Hey friends, how's it going? How are we doing? Uh, I hope we're doing well. Also, let me just make sure. Testing one, two. All right. So it looks like we got the audio doing its thing, and hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Hopefully the alerts go out soon that I'm here, that I exist, because I didn't schedule this one ahead of time. Now, this video, I think we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to wait for some of y'all to filter in just so we've got some uh, folks in here, but we're going to do a short stream. Um, I don't know, you can probably actually see it today, but my autoimmune issues right now are pretty flared. You can see this as well as a rash that forms on your face here. They call the butterfly rash if you have lupus. And when I'm well lit here, I can actually see that it's starting to come up. So, but I wanted to stream in case I wasn't up to it tomorrow, just because things have been a little rough that way. But I hope everybody is doing really well. And I found, thanks to a friend online, one of viewers like y'all, my buddy Anthony, I found some videos of basically, let's tilt this down too if we can. Found some videos of fish, a tutorial that's about 10 minutes long on how to keep fish from the 1950s. It's from 1951. And there's another video on a man and woman who keep fish in England in 1953. I might have that switched around, but it's 51 and 53. And yeah. Oh, you got a notification? That is funny because I did not pre-plan this. I just went live. But awesome. Good to hear it, Element. Uh, so I wanted to say hi to everybody as y'all came in, and then what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna queue up a video, and I think we'll do the short one first, so we can make sure everything's working, and then we'll do the 10-minute one. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these, and luckily I think they all just expired with the 70-year copyright because they were just uploaded online for like public viewing. So we'll see. I might get in trouble for sharing these, but there's always the argument that as long as I'm stopping it and critiquing these videos and having input, which is kind of the whole point, that should be fair use. So anyways, that should be an exception to the copyright claim types of stuff. It's just a React video, guys. So yeah, how's everybody doing though? Aquatic Moose, what's going on? Ganchu, hello. Sketty Nona, L Fish Tanks, Fish Tropic, good to see you. Hove Aquatics, Explosion number one. Sketty Nona, what's up? Atita, hello. Um, right on. Johnny Best, hello. And I think people like Prime Time it are streaming in 45 minutes or so, 40 minutes. So I wanted to just do a short one tonight, also just because of my uh, health, I guess. But Sean Davison, hello. Corinne, hello. Jesse Lee, it never ends. No, no, we just got to keep going. This is the song that never. I won't do that to you guys. Matthew Wiseman, I just did it to you guys. Chris Peterson, Cave of Wonders, good to see y'all. And Logan, hello. Coro, hello. So let me, Aqua Negro, hello. It's good to see a few new folks in here. So welcome. And yeah, let's fire this up. Okay, so there's one from 1951. This one is going to be the short one. It's like a minute and a half long. And this one is a British production. And let me see here if I can. There we go. Get that full stream. Johnny, thank you, buddy. Just stream. Why am I worried about a channel with 200,000 plus subscribers? Yeah, I've tried to work with them because I really do respect that Jason is big on science and he's big on, citing sources or having a source of some sort for his thoughts. I do appreciate that about his content, and I've wanted to work with him. But I think obviously he's a busy dude. Him and his wife are busy. Um, but I saw that there's a new podcast up by him and KG. So I guess he's taking on that project now too. So I'll be interested to see how it is, because they kind of have different styles and maybe it'll work well together. But I really like um, Jason's a really nice guy when I've met him. I mean, John has been nice too, but I haven't met him in person. All right. So let's pull up this video. Um, do, do, do. All right. So, can y'all see that? There's going to be a watermark in the corner, anyways. So, let me know how the volume is and everything.
Man who likes fish.
That doesn't sound like it's playing through here, but maybe we can get it on the microphone. Let's see here. Let me see if I can get my volume up too. I've never tried this with the volume, so we'll find out. All right.
You'd think traveling like a sardine in Russia would cure him, but no. In the wall between hall and lounge, a welcome waggle awaits. Some folk have silverfish and...
Can you guys hear that at all? I'm curious if you can hear it. It is a little grainy. I mean, it's an old movie. Oh, thank you, Coro. I appreciate it, buddy. Okay, so this guy basically, they just said he's like a traveling salesman. All these old films are cut for like old standard TV or film reels, so they're not in the widescreen format. So it really doesn't take anything away from it. This is on like max size for YouTube or whatever. And I don't know. I mean, if it's super copyrighted, like NFL level, then it'll just cut us off right away. And if it's not like that, then it will hopefully allow us to continue. All right, I'll turn it down just a touch, see how that goes. Yeah, still a really cool idea to have walled fish tanks. So this is 1951. So if you're thinking about it, it's Britain. They just rebuilt from World War II. So life's a little tough in the world of post-war Britain. So yeah, let's take it a little farther and see.
Don't like them. But that's different from what are virtually living pictures in the walls. Altogether, there are 28 varieties of fish in these cleverly constructed tanks. Between you and me, it's Mrs. Arvin who is responsible for this fishy hobby. It's just a wifely variant on French.
All right, so here we've got a black moor molly, which was a big deal when those came out. I can make out some guppies that are wild marking guppies with the eye spot on the side still. And it looks like some danios, some zebra danios or danio rarios. So kind of cool to see that they had that. And then look at the craftsmanship here. Not only were tanks built with a lot of craftsmanship back in the day, like 50s and earlier, that's really kind of the cutoff. But when someone had a tank, a lot of times, especially you'll see these people, the kind of fish they have, you were committing to quite a bit, because in a house like this in Britain, it's not going to be in London, it's not going to be warm enough year round in your house. And in Britain, there's a lot of old houses, so they've had to retrofit it with retro, uh, retro fit it with obviously the temperature, the heat and electricity, all that stuff. Could be a house that's 500 years old for all anyone knows. And now to put tanks in the wall, which is pretty fascinating. What it looks like is that there's an under gravel filter and maybe a sponge filter too. Um, but it looks like maybe a sand or gravel substrate. Real plants, which is interesting. It's definitely real plant growth patterns. And I'm spotting one, two, three, four, five different species of plants. There's an Aponogeton ovasis. There's a bacopa, it looks like. And then there's also some sort of maybe water wisteria, and over here maybe I can't tell if that's a grass like a cypress hellfry. And then there's a leafy plant that maybe a nubius or something like that, or maybe a sword. So let's continue a little further.
French poodles, and hubby toes the line dutifully as he should. But the design of the tanks was left to Mr. Arbin. Each is electrically heated. Each has traps for feeding, yet none of them passes a draft. And how nice to see Alice through the looking glass. Mr. Arbin believes in sterner stuff. There's a Siamese fighter in this tank, and the mirror will act as a sparring partner.
Okay, wow. So this is really interesting. So look at this. You've got here, I mean, I can even tell him what's wrong with this tank. He doesn't have enough nitrates. He's changing his water too much. But what's going on here is you've got some beautiful Scalara angels. They're already a domestic line by this point. These are the smoky striped ones that they had coming into fashion in the 50s. And you've got your Siamese fighting fish, as they call it, but the betta splendens, and it looks like it's got a silver body. It's got a half moon tail, early half moon, and then it's got the big dorsal, but not quite enough to make it like it's kind of a quarter moon, and then the dorsal doesn't fit with the moon yet. And what they would call these would be a Cambodian, uh, oh, be quiet, computer, a Cambodian betta, or a Cambodian fighting fish. 1938 is when those were brought to Europe and America, and that's where you get the big tail genes. Now, they'd had it since the 1790s in the royal family's menagerie in Thailand, where they were breeding for the royal court. So there are fancy breeds that were given as gifts to several dignitaries and things, but usually those stayed in Asia. There were a few Dutch folks in Indonesia that had them. And then there were also some in Singapore, some British agents in various territorial positions down there that wrote of that. But here you can see they've got like a water wisteria and a water sprite kind of just floating tangled, which is cool that they're real live plants. And they've got the roots really showing, and they're really grasping. So, I mean, it shows you when you have no substrate that's nutrient rich and probably not dosing anything. I mean, what they used to feed fish, especially like angelfish, when people were serious breeders and keepers back then, which I'm sure this guy was, or this guy and gal were, with such a fancy tank, is that they would feed them like ground beef hearts and ground liver and kidney meat and stuff like that. Uh, for building protein. It was all about like, oh, it's a tough fish. Things like piranhas were very popular too. Any like kind of mean Oscar or anything that would fight or show kind of aggression, people found pretty entertaining and novel still at this point. I mean, people still find them cool, but yeah. So I'm going to mention that already they figured out that putting a mirror in that you're getting the betta to train its aggression on something. And my guess is this is really interesting because this is now 70 years ago, like 75 years ago, 73 years ago. Uh, and they've got a betta in with angelfish. People still think you shouldn't do that. And it's been known for so long that they make great community fish and that they really only show aggression towards other females if there's a male present, and other males obviously show aggression towards each other many times. But I just find that to be like fascinating. Um, and wait a minute here. All right, there we go. So now the thing that they mentioned about all these being in the wall um, is kind of cool because he had to figure out how to do a nice water change without being able to get into the top other than just a slot. Maybe it's a shelf that lifts up and then they get into it, easier. But it's quite a bit of work and kind of interesting. So let's continue. And there's only like 15 seconds left, so we'll hear it out.
No need for alarm. The angelfish are safe. The Siamese fighter will only attack another of his own kind, and without an opponent, he lives a quiet and contented life within the Arbin walls.
All right. So that was the first little film. Just a cute little thing. I don't love putting mirrors in with bettas because I don't see a need to raise their aggression. I think that they'll get aggressive enough on their own. There's two theories of that though. But I thought that was kind of a cool little thing. And if this works, I have other media that I want to share with you guys. But I wanted to give this a go today. It felt like an easygoing, subject and stuff. So it's good to see y'all coming in. Everybody who's joining, Jeff, Kane, good to see you, buddy. Aquaman, Surf City. Let's see here. So yeah, the heat that he did himself there. Felicia, hello, and Bambi, hello. Chris, hello. Your average fish keeper, hello. Nano fish keeper, hello. Coils, probably heat coils. You could buy them. Terrible fire hazard, but you could actually get a heat coil that was wrapped in cloth, and you could buy these long coils for reptiles or fish, and you could put them underneath. You can put them underneath, a mat if it's for reptiles, or under a fake rock, and then you can put them underneath the tank itself if you have a slate bottom. And that's probably what you would do, I would guess, would put down one piece of slate, a piece of felt, the heater coil, have that wired into the wall, and then have the slate as the bottom of the tank. And then that would conduct the heat. It's an under gravel filter system, it looks like. So you've got that bringing the warm water from the bottom up. Naturally, it moves upward anyways. And I think that's interesting, though, that they knew already, and they're saying that the fish, no need to worry. The fish is not it's not going to harm anything. So it's fun to see. That was 70 years ago, 73 years ago. I mean, probably made it a couple years before that. Coils, yeah, they're probably made of copper on the inside, most likely, yeah. Um, let's see here. Johnny said, when fluval stratum exceeds past 2 years, how can you tell when to change it? You don't need to until your plants are really losing, when they are lackluster. That's when you'll know. If they used to have color that they don't anymore, time to change it. But if they're still growing fine, I've had soils last maybe 4 years, then they tend to go downhill. But if you're adding a liquid fertilizer, you're still better off than like a gravel tank because you've got that silt and soil. You may have a sand cap too. You may also have all the mulm that's been filtering down into that. And so if you're feeding them good food, I have a whole video about that. If you're feeding good food, you're replenishing the soil, especially if you have snails and shrimp to uh, replace the soil and create new castings and finish metabolizing stuff that couldn't get broken down by the fish or is missed by the fish. In these early tanks, snails were incredibly important. In fact, a lot of people thought that you could not cycle a tank without them. So we're going to jump into heater coils are usually nickel chromium or nichrome wires, Coro says. Oh, that's good to know. Um, do, 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 do. All right, let's see here. Yeah, average fish keeper says I have my stratum going on 6 years with a sand cat. Yeah, that's just the thing is you with any aqua soil, you're gonna get that much more performance out of it than having just sand, right? If you have sand or gravel, that adds nothing other than if you're using crushed coral or aragonite or something, limestone. It might add some KH, some calcium, some magnesium, a little bit of potassium, a few locked up minerals, zinc, things like that, cobalt. But those are very trace. And if you already have that there, the worst thing that's going to happen is it's not going to be little spheres. You don't have as much flow of oxygen down into the root layer, which is what a lot of those systems are set up for. If you're doing estimative index dosing, that is in theory wanting the roots to be able to get the water too. And so you want some flow through those little spheres. Then within those spheres, according to Tom Barr's recent publication, we know that there is actual anoxic filtration happening within each sphere. And then on the outside, there is aerobic filtration of the nitrites and nitrates being broken down, the ammonia and things. On the inside, the ammonia is getting stored. So it's the bacteria is sequestering ammonia, and then there's another bacteria that's slowly eating that. If there's iron and sulfur present at all, even trace amounts, then there's a bacteria, the third set of bacteria that can come in and break down that, and that will actually be released as methane gas, sulfur hex. Was it not sulfur hexafluoride, but hydrogen sulfide, and CO2, O2, hydrogen, and nitrogen in the form of nitrous oxide. So yeah, and if you don't like the silt of your pellets breaking down, that's why most people would replace it. Is they're doing estimative index dosing with high light, high CO2. This is very high performance plants, and you're going to be doing a cycle through that. So then the next thing that you'd worry about is it breaking down. And if you move plants out and you're selling plants a lot, taking cuttings, moving stuff, it makes it dusty and dirty and silty. And so if you don't care about that, you're left with basically a silt that's a volcanic clay and ash, and probably some uh, coal or carbon rich substrate, like a rock wool too is possible depending on your brand. And I have videos on how to swap out. It's called how to refresh aqua soil in an existing aquarium, I think. So check that out. Anyways, let's move on to the next video. And I'm going to try to oh, and fish streams, I'll be doing a substrate lasagna video this week. I'm setting up a new tank, a new 4D breeder, and I have almost all the ingredients. I need one more thing, and then I'm going to put that together. So yeah. But yeah. So this next part I'm going to try to do so that I can also upload it as a standalone video for folks who don't get alerts about the live streams. So I'm going to try to comment on this without looking at the stream right away, but after the clip, I'll be back and chat with you guys in 10 minutes or whatever. So let's start the next video. So let me get it queued up and ready to go. All right. And share screen. All right. So here we've got, okay. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Fishery. Welcome to a flashback, a retro evening, if you will. We're going to be watching a film called Aquarium Wonderland from 1955. Hopefully everything goes well and the stream doesn't just disappear, because that is a possibility when you're using other people's content. But this should be fair use because we're going to have some commentary about it. But let's see what they have to say about aquariums in 1955 in this film. Let's give it a go, and I'll stop it, and we'll chat about it as we go. Saltwater.
Deep down in the ocean's ear are some very unusual things. Unusual animals, often colorful. Unfortunately, very little of this ocean life can be seen. A great deal can be learned about water life, however, by studying the wonders within a small aquarium, an aquarium no larger than this one. The plant and animal life found here have much in common with the plant and animal life found in great oceans, lakes, and rivers. For example, we can learn about the wonderful way that animals breathe underwater.
So already, it's interesting that they've got this kind of idea about the ocean. The earliest aquariums were all obsessed with saltwater. Then they got into goldfish and then paradise fish. But goldfish were kept very early on. And what's interesting is that we're talking about 1955, and already you can see this is going to be a planted tank they're showing us about. And this is going to be how to set one up. So it's going to be interesting what methods have changed or been different in the last few years. So let's see.
Notice that this goldfish appears to be drinking. He's really breathing.
Anubias.
Underwater.
Or not Anubias, Echinodorus, I mean.
Water usually contains invisible bubbles of oxygen called free oxygen. Fish breathe free oxygen with a pair of organs called gills, which are located inside the body.
Look at animation.
The gills look like several rows of bright red combs, but are really hundreds of small blood vessels covered with thin layers of skin. In human beings, the blood comes to the lungs for oxygen. In fish, the blood comes to the gills for the same purpose. This is the way it happens. The fish opens his mouth and takes in water. The water contains invisible bubbles of free oxygen. When the fish closes his mouth, he is able to force the water through.
So something to note is that if you've got a betta or a gourami or a tenopoma, any number of fish, snakeheads, uh, chaunas, they will have a labyrinth organ up here. And the labyrinth organ not only gives them extra perception of sounds that they wouldn't have otherwise, but it also allows them to breathe. So they can go to the top of the water and breathe and actually absorb that that way. Now, the other interesting way that fish, including like corridoras, have is they can breathe atmospheric air straight, um, partially absorption through the lungs, but actually they hit the top of the water really quick, and it disturbs the water, which makes a bunch of micro bubbles, and then they suck it up in their mouth really quickly. If you watch uh, a slowed down, a hyperlapse video of it, or slow motion video of it, you would see like them hitting the top of the water. Sometimes Corys, you'll see them get extra frisky and they'll just zoom up to the top of the tank and hit the water. Well, that's one of the things they're doing. They also absorb water, oddly enough, through their colon. They don't have a stomach per se in a lot of fish, especially fish that breathe air. Carp are another one, but they can absorb it through their uh, colon slash intestine. It's not right to compare their digestive system to ours. Some of them have digestive systems where it sits a while, but most fish, it's pretty straight through, like in an hour or two, it's like in and out. And so they gulp air and literally in their stomach lining or intestine lining, whatever you want to call that tract that goes right through them, they're absorbing air that way. But the majority of fish, this gill thing is true. So let's continue.
His gills. While the water passes through the gills, the blood absorbs the free oxygen directly out of the water. Then the water is forced out the gill opening. The oxygen it once contained is now in the fish's bloodstream. It's difficult to believe that fish have any blood just by looking at them with the naked eye. But the next picture offers proof that fish do have blood. This is a small section of a goldfish's tail, greatly magnified.
Goldfish tail.
Here, the fish's tiny heart is pumping blood throughout its body.
You see the red blood cells.
Body.
Oxygen with iron.
This blood contains is feeding all parts of the fish's body. Oxygen is of life-giving importance to fish, just as it is to humans. Some oxygen enters the water directly from the open air.
So they're going to talk here about air exchange, O2 in the water, which is great. I don't know if all these plants are real, but it looks like they easily could be. What's interesting is you can see how tightly spaced this is. So what this tells me is that this probably has a good amount of nitrates, which doesn't surprise me with goldfish. But it also has very low light. To see like a kabamba or a lodia or hornwort, any of those growing like this, or parrot's feather, growing this dense and small with this evenly spaced nodes, no color change on the peripheries or anything, that gives us a good indication that it's going to be a bulb light of some sort. Sometimes they use two just normal household bulb lights. They did then later, I'm not sure what era, you could get the, fluorescent lighting and stuff. I can't recall when exactly that would have been the norm. But I do know that home light bulb, normal incandescent bulbs were being used at this period very frequently, especially just by like small time, like, oh, your first fish tank kind of thing. And here you can see that they've got like a crushed coral or something in there, and they've got some stone. It looks like wonder stone. So all this world of decor all starts in kind of the 30s, really the late 20s, early 30s. And things like diving figurines and all sorts of things like that. The air stones that go up and down. That might even be a diving figurine right there. I don't know. Let's just keep watching.
Some of it is manufactured by plants and released in the water. In this aquarium, a special air pump helps add free oxygen to the water. Fish are remarkable in more ways than one, whether they are found in an ocean or a small aquarium. Instead of having arms and legs like land animals, they have fins. Goldfish have 7 fins in all. Each fin can be...
Well, that's not true anymore, unfortunately. They don't all have 7. Well, they do have 7 vestigial fins in theory. But this is definitely an era when your goldfish still had its, even if it was a veil tail, that counts as 1 fin. But yeah, soon they started getting rid of some of the fins on some of the varieties.
Opened or closed by small rib-like bones. By moving the various fins in certain ways, fish can travel in any and all directions. They can go up or down. They can go...
Fish can't travel in any or all directions always. There's actually several groups of fish that cannot swim backwards. That's a story for a different day.
Sideways. They can move their fins so gently that they stand still. Fish can even swim backwards. Most fish have a nose. These 2 little dots
All fish
are the
have a
nostrils.
nose.
A fish can often locate food by smell. Besides an ear located inside its body, a fish has an unusual nerve organ called a lateral line, which is located just beneath the scales.
So if you want to know about how fish hear, I have a whole in-depth episode. It was one of my most recent episodes, actually. And it goes into this whole lateral line, how the air bladder that lets fish go up and down and be more or less buoyant and so forth, how the lateral line as well as their ear, which is separate, impact, they all meet up with the spinal column and the spine in some fish. There are 2 main groups of fish, and then there's actually like 7 total different hearing setups that have evolved, but they hear high pitch noise. So if you've got something that's a high frequency, something that's a shrill noise or a buzzing, something going on in your fish room, like a motor or whatnot, they're going to feel it in their lateral line. That's where they feel things that are happening. They can also sense directionality with this lateral line, not just forward and backwards, but up and down in most species. So even though it's only, maybe 100 cells across or 20 cells across, they can still tell on that sensory array by having it on both sides and the length of it like this. It still gives them a 3D picture to their brain of what's going on. And now on their skin, they can also tell currents and things happening, but their inner ear is actually going to hear deeper noises. So that inner ear hears things like clicks that are deeper, thuds, like rocks being flipped over by a fish, maybe foraging or something, or someone throwing something in the water nearby, thunder and lightning, stuff like that. They only evolved goldfish to hear from around 0 hertz all the way up to around I think it's 2000. Some fish can hear up to 4000. So we'll continue. But yeah, lateral line is for higher pitch noises. Some of them, including carp, use their air bladder to hear deeper noises. And now we know that that reverberates in the air bladder for them to hear that. And it doesn't require enough pressure, like pressure waves in the water, for them to hear it. They can hear it even without it setting off the pressure wave sensor on their lateral line. there's the base waves that have much higher frequencies, and those actually are much lower frequencies. Higher, I mean, the actual wavelengths are taller, and those can actually be felt in the ear, and the air bladder. So the air bladder in the fish allows them to go up and down, but it also allows them to have above water type hearing. So they're hearing in atmospheric oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, various compounds of gases, and they're actually able, when that's inflated, to then use something very similar to our eardrums, has a organ called a hammer and stirrup, and the anvil and the drum. Those are the little pieces. Well, that same system uses the entire air bladder as a way to hear sounds that are out of range otherwise underwater, and then the ones that are within range are all felt by the lateral line, so the higher frequency stuff.
The lateral line can feel very high sounds. It combines the senses of both hearing and touch.
They said that a
The
lot
ocean
better than
contains
me.
a variety of water life, but only a small number of animals can be kept in an aquarium. One interesting water animal that lives quite well in any small aquarium is a snail. A
Yes,
snail
yes,
breathes the same as a fish, except it has only one gill. If it were not able to fold up into its shell, a snail would soon be eaten by hungry fish. Seen through the glass aquarium wall, the snail makes an interesting sight as it eats the tiny plants called algae that grow there.
A pretty good focus of film back then.
When setting up a new aquarium, a few very important things must be remembered.
Golly.
First of all, the aquarium tank is placed on a firm support.
Hope you got a
Then the
new
bottom of the
aquarium,
tank
guys.
is prepared. To do this, some coarse sand is washed in running water. Sand from ocean beaches cannot be used. It is too salty.
So use
After a while,
sand and
all
dirt
the
from
dirt
the river.
washes away, leaving only clean sand.
Is that about
Then the bottom of
10
the aquarium
pounds
is
gonna be
covered
in there?
with sand. 10 pounds of it is just enough for this 5-gallon aquarium.
Where have I heard that
Plants are
before?
placed
Father
in the
Fish's
sand.
method.
They not only make the aquarium look nice, but more important, they help add oxygen to the water. Water is then added.
George
This
Farmer's
water
trick.
helps keep the sand and plants from
He has a
washing away.
colander. Plate works well too, guys.
Ordinary drinking water often contains too much of the chemical chlorine. Fish become sick in this kind of water, so the aquarium is allowed to stand just like this for a week. This ages the water and causes the chlorine to disappear.
So that's interesting. I don't think they're going to cycle it. I think they're going to allow the fact that there's plants, sand that he probably got a local river or something. Maybe they put the snail in, although they did mention the snail needs to breathe and stuff. But they mentioned that the water's chlorinated at this point, which is actually a fairly new process for municipalities. And a lot of people are still living on wells and things on their farms and stuff in the 50s, or just didn't do anything to the water like that. And it was kind of interesting to see them add it. And they said it took a week for the chlorine to dissipate. Well, it only takes 24 hours, give or take, for the chlorine and chloramine to dissipate out. If there's chloramine, it can take longer. It can take a few days. But the chlorine they'd be using back then would be gone within 24 hours. So I'm wondering if they're giving that, and with the bacteria already on some aquatic plants and already maybe in washing some of the soil out of the sand and silt mix, if that's what they mean. But I hope they had a sand trap in that sink.
Before putting in fish, the temperature of the water the fish are in and the temperature of the aquarium water are checked. They should
70.
be nearly the same, for fish cannot stand too sudden a change in temperature. This is the correct way to accustom fish to a new temperature.
Oh,
The
glass.
temporary goldfish home will float this way for half an hour. while the two temperatures slowly become equal. Then the goldfish can be released.
How many goldfish do you think in the last 50 years have had their water acclimated for them? I'm going to guess it's like less than 5%. Poor guys.
For every gallon of water, one snail can also be added.
Oh, wow. Listen to that. For every gallon of water, a snail can be added. And that looks like a mystery snail, apple snail kind of thing. They did have some neorites and things, but they were using like Western pond snails and stuff like that a lot too. But man, if you had a freshwater breeding snail, you're going to have a lot of snails if you start with 5 in a 5-gallon. Those are not little snails. All right, we'll hear the rest of their explanation here.
Help keep the aquarium clean. Unless an air pump is used to help add oxygen to the water, there must not be too many fish in the aquarium. If there are too many fish, there will not be enough free oxygen for all of them. There should be at least 1 gallon of water for every inch of fish.
Oh, there's the rule, you guys. So they're telling people this rule back when they thought that chlorine was going to be there a week and you had to get rid of it. You used to let your water age, as they called it. The saltwater tanks at this time were actually telling people to put a glass of urine in the water to start the cycling process. Now, saltwater was very new, at least doing it right was. And in freshwater, they said 1 inch of fish per gallon, and he's got 3 goldfish in there. These goldfish could be 15 inches full grown. So, they're not following that rule. Clearly, it's kind of like they're assuming that the goldfish, I'm guessing, aren't going to live that long because they've got 3 goldfish in a 5-gallon, and they're saying, put that many snails in. So there's 5 snails in here. And you can see that the substrate, it's coarse sand. And then there's some plants. There's like some val and maybe a sword plant or something. And then they've got some floating plants. Looks like water hyacinth maybe there, and like a hornwort or parrot feather there.
Aquarium has room to spare for these 3 1-inch goldfish. Only one person should do the feeding each day, as it is dangerous to overfeed fish.
Hey, I hear echoes of Father Fish again. Yeah, only one person should feed because you could overfeed your fish. No, we all know this now. Also, flake food in these little cans and stuff, that's been around since the 1800s. The dried flake foods, but different gimmicks of like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all sorts of things have been tried over time. And the bottom line is it's quality over quantity. If you could feed them, live bloodworms and Daphnia, they'd love that much more. But these goldfish, there's a good chance they're going to eat some of these plants. So I don't know if they'll address that or what. I guess we'll see here in a moment.
A small amount of food is enough for 3 or 4 average-sized goldfish. About once a week, a dip tube is used to clean out the bottom of the aquarium. The dirty water is discarded, and fresh water that has been aged for a week is added to refill the tank.
Boy, what a pain. That wasn't even a siphon. That dip tube was a nightmare.
These goldfish are happy for 3 reasons. 1, their aquarium is not overcrowded. 2, they get just enough food each day, never too much. And 3, they are happy because they never have a sudden change in temperature.
Now, you notice that nitrates are not really mentioned that much, and a lot of the stuff about chemistry, pH, and all that stuff, that wasn't even learned until like the 1920s. A lot of this stuff wasn't known, or at least it wasn't like widely known in the hobby. You couldn't just hop online You could, if you were really into fish, maybe learn something from Innis or Tropical Fish Keeper magazine, something like that around these times. But it's just something to remember. Also, you could see the gravel backing wasn't deep. It was just the top of the gravel to get any of the poo that was sitting there. Because how are these plants going to grow otherwise? So there needs to be some level of nitrates, and goldfish produce quite a bit, especially 3 in a 5-gallon tank. That's way too many for now. We would probably say, but goldfish are kind of a little extra dirty, and kick up a lot of material and dig, and also have quite a bit of ammonia produced pound for pound compared to other fish species.
Even under these ideal conditions, goldfish seldom lay eggs in an aquarium, although it is possible. If this were to occur, the eggs would have to be removed to a separate bowl, for many fish cannot resist eating them.
Talking about laying
When greatly
eggs.
magnified, the eggs at first show no signs of life.
Oh,
But
there's
within
the
a day or
eggs
two, they
developing.
begin to take the shape of tiny fish, curled into tight little balls.
Fish eye, spine, heart.
On the 4th or 5th day, the fish are born. One by one, they break out of their soft shells to become living, breathing members of the wonderful world of water animals.
There you go, baby
Little
goldfish.
fish instinctively hide among the leaves of water plants. In a few weeks, they are big enough to be placed in the main aquarium. When they grow older, however, they must be removed. Otherwise, the aquarium will soon be overcrowded. There are other wonders to be found in an aquarium. Wonders among both plants and animals. For an aquarium no larger than this one is truly one of nature's wonderlands. By seeing some of the things that live here, we are better able to understand more about the many strange things that live in the great bodies of water which are all around us.
Well, probably won't learn anything about the ocean with a goldfish tank. But what a wonderful, family-friendly, lovely little film. And we'll try to do some more of these. Yeah, the ammonia in that tank would probably be rough. There's no light over the tank. Probably don't need a heater with goldfish, especially being in a house, you know. Um, but especially with the fancier types of goldfish that are out there, you definitely do need a heater nowadays. And it kind of shows how far things have come, because guppies, swordtails, platies, mollies, none of those required a heater originally. My dad remembers keeping guppies in the late 50s and early 60s, and mollies and platies, even neon tetras. When he was a little older as a teenager, he had a aquarium that had a heater in it, but then he didn't. And early on, he said, "Yeah, we just threw guppies in there. We call them millions fish sometimes back then." And so, yeah, really cool little film. Thanks for watching it with me, you guys. And we'll be sure to watch more of this stuff. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check back with the channel if you like what we're doing here. See you guys next time. All right, guys. So I wanted to do that so that I can cut that scene and upload that as its own little thing. I'm not going to stream too much longer tonight as it is, but I now can take a look at the yeah, we need to find the kid in that video. That's exactly like my uncle's age, like probably an 8-year-old kid in 1955. My uncle Henry is exactly that. Would probably look like that kid, actually. Let's go. So, I kept guppies 10 years ago in a 10-gallon, no heater, no filter? Well, yeah, you can, but not the fanciest ones. That's for sure. They won't do that. They will not usually last. And we never heated our guppy tank in the late 60s, gave all the babies to a local fish store for more angel floss and charcoal. Yeah. And now we know that charcoal's not really the best thing to use. They didn't get into filtration and stuff like that in this video. In fact, I don't even think they had a filter or anything. I think they were literally just changing the water, like big amounts of it in this video. In the first video, they had filters, definitely. They had under gravels and plenums. But yeah, I think that's kind of interesting that my dad mentioned that they had the charcoal filter too. And yes, it makes sense that it would take toxins and bad things out of there, and it can to some degree. Pretty much bigger molecules it takes out, which includes things like tannins. It includes things like some of the positive biofilms and stuff that we want to build up. And so, really, now when we run carbon in like activated carbon or charcoal, as we just simply called it historically, um, those packs that come with your hang off the back or your canister filter, those things are good for a couple days. They'll take medications and things out of the water. They're basically like a big piece of Swiss cheese that can catch molecules and particles of various medications and chemicals and whatnot. And yeah, kind of interesting. So let's see here. 3 ranchos, no heater, no problem. Yeah, ranchos are not too fancy at all. You get into like the pearl scales and stuff like that. A lot of those have been bred only in warm, and I'm saying like 78 degrees condition. Doesn't mean that they won't withstand 65 degrees or whatever it gets to in your house, but they're much happier, uh, some lines, that is, than in other ones. I'm at the age and tank that, hold on, I'll just put it up for you guys too. I had guppies, a quarry of some species, few black mollies, and a shark of some type. We would just buy what we could afford, and yes, no heater. Yeah, and back then, a lot of the fish that were in the hobby, you saw Corydorus trilineatus, Corydorus pandas were around, and then there was Corydorus pileatus is the oldest one in the hobby. 1903 is when it came back to the U.S. Written about in 1823. And again in 1833 by Charles Darwin visiting Buenos Aires, the big city down in South America. And, he's visiting there in Argentina and realizes that there's this little catfish in with the goldfish in some of the basins and tubs they're keeping. And kind of interesting that is, what they were keeping there. Just it kind of fascinating that almost 200 years ago that worked out, and that still worked out when they shipped them to the US on steamer ships, and where it took a couple weeks. And then, the fidgetier ones had to be flown in, and they need more, careful care, and there's more pathogens and things that can come in with them. So it did get exponentially more tricky right after this time period. But the goldfish has always been a standby. Guppies, live bears, platies, even sunfish and local fish. All those have all been standbys in the hobby for a long time. So, yeah. Oh, you might be getting a 250, George. Right on. Good luck. I hope you get it. Philip, you did miss the little video thing, but this live stream will be finishing up in a minute here, and you can catch the replay, or I'm going to try to edit this into two or maybe one short. Play with the software I'm streaming with, and hopefully um, get that set up. Guys, I'm going to call it a night a bit early. I want everyone to be able to go to Jason's stream or Prime Time or Joanna, their stream, or whatever it is that they're hoping to do with the evening. And hopefully, I'll be streaming tomorrow at some point. Might be a little bit earlier than normal. But I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I thank you for joining me on this little flashback and journey through time. I do have old magazines too we can go through again. Now that I've got the proper way to kind of document it and archive like the old tropical fish hobbyist first year that they existed, I have the whole first year. We can have some fun with that in the channel. And as time goes on, hopefully I'll have some more access to stuff like this as I build up my own personal story. I just haven't spent, uh, anything. Oh, Massey is live with the speaker, huh? Well, right on. So St. Louis has a speaker on. We'll have to check that out. If you have a link to that, Coro, I'd appreciate it. I'd love to watch that personally too. And yes, I will, Coro. You've been awesome tonight, buddy. Thank you. Give a shout out to Laura for sharing you with us. No, the Peanut Gallery doesn't have anything to say about that. All right. Well, everybody, I hope you have a good night. Speaking of Massey, though, too, I'll say it. I'm scheduled now for September to be speaking in St. Louis. I'm excited. So that should be cool. Yeah. All right. Have a wonderful evening and do good, be good. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully, may have a new video for you tomorrow. Also, had a couple I'm juggling. I've just been fighting some health things. Like I said, if you weren't here at the beginning, you can kind of see the butterfly rash thing happening. But I'm gonna get some rest. Thank you so much for your support, and I will see y'all later.